Thank you for coming to Smart Recovery's Empowerment Talks. I'm your host, Jasmine. And today I have with me Tammy, who I'm excited to meet and chat with and get to know. Our empowerment talks, we're just about, getting to know each other and building a sense of community, as well as like showing stories of resilience and self-empowerment, because that's what Smart Recovery is about. So I would like to get started with Tammy. Can you please tell me a little bit about your journey and just how you came to Smart?
Absolutely. I would love to tell that story. So for me, I actually am, well, I consider myself a family member in recovery. I came to Smart Recovery through the Family and Friends program.
Okay.
And what that means is I have a lot of loved ones in my life, whether they're friends or family members who have either chosen recovery for themselves or they have not.
Hmm.
And I needed to get to a place where I was okay with that. And when I came to Smart, I was not in that place at all. I I really had looked for something where I was like, I need help. I need help for myself. Um, I had started to realize that I couldn't help my loved one without helping myself. And I kind of just was done with whatever life was throwing at me.
Hmm.
And I was like, I need a change. And that's how I came to Smart. And it's challenging as a family member to come to Smart. I think we think about those in recovery and how challenging it can be. And it absolutely is, because knowing you need help can be challenging. But I think we don't think about like all the family members that they're struggling and they are not in a situation where they have to pinpoint, like, oh, this is my use disorder, my behavior disorder, and I don't even know what I'm asking help for.
Hmm.
So when I came to Smart, I was exactly like that. I was like, I'm not the problem. First of all, I'm not the
Oh,
problem.
it's nice.
And and also please help me because clearly I am the problem. I am a problem. So yeah.
And so, how long ago did you come to Smart Recovery?
Yeah. So I started attending meetings. It's kind of strange. I started actually attending meetings probably over 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
They had meetings online and I started going, but I just like I say, people in recovery and who attend 4 points, I was not ready. I just wasn't. So I attended some meetings. I even found my old notes that I
Mhm.
took during
Oh my
those
gosh.
meetings. Um, and then probably about 8 years ago, and that was like a very short, brief time. I went to like 5 meetings.
Hmm.
Um, so about 8-ish years, 7 years ago, I started attending for real. I was like, okay, I absolutely have to change. And my life has to change. And the ideas behind Smart being self-management were very appealing to me, that I got the choice. I was able to make a determination of what my life looks like versus life just happening to me.
Hmm.
So I did that, and then there was a scholarship opportunity that came up to become a facilitator. There were no in-person meetings in my area, so I ran with that opportunity
Hmm.
and thinking full on, I'm going to start a family and friends meeting because I know I needed that. But there were no recovery meetings in my area either, so I ended up starting both because
Oh, okay.
love doing both things. And really, when did the family and friends, I started to realize not only did I have issues around how to manage relationships with my loved ones, whether they chose recovery or not, I also had a lot of anger issues that I struggled with. And the 4 point handbook really helped me almost look at it as a behavior use and change that behavior.
Mhm. I love that you highlighted that you were able to use it for something just as, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but something just as simple as my anger. Like, I think a lot
Yeah.
of us, people that come to Smart think that you have to come and I have to be, it has to be substance use related.
Yeah.
It's not. Like, the tools are for literally any aspect of your life, right? Like, I'm
Absolutely.
angry, I can do an ABC. Like,
Yeah.
and let's figure that out and work on it. It's about behaviors, because the substance use, although there are some, that state that it is a disease, and like I totally respect that and see that it is problematic, but there is a behavior attached to it, and we can work on behaviors that lead to that. So
Yeah.
I love that you pointed that out, that you're like, I was angry and I
Yeah.
found tools.
And I realized like I was angry from a long time ago. Like I've been angry for years. And when I started listening to people in the 4-point meetings, I was like, I related so much to what people were using substances for. I was like, yeah, that's how I use anger. It was
Mhm,
my go-to. It was easy for me to use. It made me feel better in the moment, but
mhm,
not long term. I pushed people out of my life because of that. I almost lost a job because of that. So for me, it truly was like taking over my life. And I didn't realize it until I started doing family and friends, working different tools through family and friends,
mhm.
and then starting to engage in the 4-point meetings.
Wow. So you mentioned like the tools from the family and friends. So like, is there any tool that like really stands out to you that you are just like, I have to go to, this is my go-to tool?
It probably has changed over the past because this was, I started facilitating 5 years ago, started
Okay.
attending meetings, 7, 8 years ago. So it's probably changed over time. But I
Mhm.
will say, like, my favorite, and I think my group probably laughs because like everything comes up, and I'm like, this is my favorite tool, and I'm like, it's not. I mean, not everything can be your favorite, but
Right.
the two go to for me initially was the anti-awfulizing tool. I had a lot of anxiety,
Mhm.
that I was self-created anxiety, not that I went and had a medical professional say
Mhm.
you have an anxiety disorder, but self-created anxiety. So that anti-awfulizing tool really helped me hone in on the fact that I was mentally creating a space where everything was at 100. Everything was the worst. Nothing could ever get better. And I was making that happen.
Mhm.
So that tool really helped me start creating like a timeline, like what is not a timeline, but like a that scale, that's on that scale, what truly is 100,
Mhm.
and what is this thing that I'm upset about because someone said something to me at work and I just wasn't happy about it. Like, where is that at?
Mhm.
And started adjusting for that. So that was the first tool that I was like, oh, and it's so simple and quick. And it was just like, oh, I can use this today, now. I can take this with me. Um, and then the fear exercise, which for those who have the handbook, it's literally the last page of the handbook. Uh, and that exercise really has you look at what are your fears? What if you name your fears? What happens if that fear happens? And then kind of helping you build a plan. So again, as someone who kind of struggled with looking at anxiety in a way of just being fearful of what could happen,
Mhm.
it was a great way for me to not only look at what things I could put in place or plan for, but also like getting down because that tool is 3 columns. Again, super easy, fast tool.
Mhm.
And by the last column, you're like, either I can put a plan in place or it's telling me I have another fear related to that. So it really helped me get down to where my fear really was coming from
Mhm.
and focus in on that. And then saying, what can I do about it? What are the choices I have? And that aspect of smart recovery is like, to me, like the biggest aspect of what choices do I have? I have choices. And it's anyway, this is all wonderful, but those are the two tools. I know your question was like really simple.
No, it's okay. No, I love it because I'm
Yeah.
like, I think I need to do that fear tool. Like I'm literally like trying not to glance over at my books and grab it, and I'm like, so I can dog it. Like after this, that's what I'm doing. I'm working on that tool.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so easy. And
how did I
really
miss this?
it's yeah, and it's truly like to me, it's almost like a quicker form of an ABC because you are looking at
Mhm.
your is this belief rational, irrational? I mean, it's doing all of that, but it's just doing it in 3 columns. So it's really quick and straightforward.
I love lists. So I'm like, yes, to write stuff down. Let's do this. Um,
Yeah.
so I hear you bringing up like choices a lot. So that leads me to my next question. Like, So what does self-empowerment mean to you? I'm hearing choice, but is there
Yeah.
anything else that really just sticks out to you?
Yeah. So self empowerment for me does come. I mean, I say choice a lot because that is truly what empowerment means to me. It's not the fact that I have choices, but the fact that I get to choose what my destiny is. I get to choose what I say to somebody, how I feel about somebody, how I interact with somebody. Also, just without other people around, I get to choose what my day is going to look like, what how I react to things. All of those little choices is what empowers me going forward. It makes me feel like I have some sense of control, even when I can't control everything. I can control myself.
Mhm.
And that's really powerful for me and something I didn't always feel. I always felt I one of my other lovely negative traits that I had for for me was I was super controlling and because I thought I could if I controlled everything around me, then I could control the outcome within me. And that's not the case at all. It
Yeah.
actually starts completely opposite, controlling yourself and then maybe some things happen that you want to happen. Maybe that sphere of influence can like get other people to do or go along with what you'd like them to go along with. But I was totally backwards. I was trying to control everything around me. And now it's like, it's so freeing and empowering to not worry what anybody else is doing. It's like, that's okay. That's cool. Like, I
Not
may
my
or may
hula
not
hoop.
like it, but yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, empowering to me, like you mentioned, I bring up choices a lot because that is what creates empowerment within me. That's what I can control. That's my power.
I like that. I love that self. And I do see that like even for myself, like just trying to almost bully the outcome.
Yeah.
And like I'm like, I'm not a bully, but then in like retrospect, I'm like, no, maybe I kind of am because I want things to go my way because I think I know what's best and it has to. And then if it's not, then I'm like disappointed. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So just like learning to like really like let go and not always be attached to that outcome. I learned
Yeah.
that in another smart meeting. It was NATO, not attached to the outcome, and I have stolen it and I love it.
Oh
And
my God, I love that.
yes, I'm like, so yeah, like that has really helped me since then. I'm like, I'm, you know what, I'm not attached to the outcome. Like it is what it is, and whatever happens, happens. I'll deal with it myself. So
Yeah. And I want to add to this too, because I think it's important, is
mhm.
this is not easy to do this, by the way. This letting go thing that Jazz and I are just like throwing around, like you just let it go. Like, no, it's not like that.
Mhm.
Um, and because my go-to for years, I mean, most of my life has been anger, that's actually my initial go-to. That is the emotion I had. And initially I thought like, "Ooh, I'm not allowed to be angry at anything anymore. Like I just am not allowed to be because that's bad." And that's not the case. What it is now I get to determine how long that anger lasts, what I use that anger for. Can I use it as a motivating tool? Can I use it as flag to me that a boundary needs to be created? What can I use that for instead of like sitting in it and just allowing the rest of my day to be, not great because I've sat in this anger all day, which is what I used to do. And it was miserable. I will tell you
Mhm.
that much. It was
Yeah.
miserable to be angry all day. Um, and so it's not easy, but I found it manageable and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. All of your emotions are valid. All of your emotions are okay to have, but it's what we do with those that actually makes the difference. And it just took me so long, I feel like, to recognize that.
Mm. But I love that you did point that out. Like anger it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's healthy to be angry at stuff because unjust things happen. Things
Yeah.
happen that tick you off and that's okay, but what you do with it, that outcome and then that control that you have, how long you sit in it, if you use it to motivate you to like, I know like I'm very competitive. I play soccer and I don't like to lose. So if someone goes past me or takes the ball from me, I will chase them to the other end of the field. Like, don't you, I want that back. Hey, excuse me, that's
Yeah.
mine. But that anger like motivates me. But I feel like, but after the game, it's done. Like it's cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a game. It was fun. I got my exercise in, right? But like, yeah, just not not letting it just control your entire day. And I
Yeah.
know that sometimes I still struggle with that. Like you said, it's not easy. There are some
No.
things that I'm just like, well, I want to just hold that grudge. I want to hang on to it and like we're best friends. You're not going anywhere. But it's causing me more harm than it is the other person because 9 times out of 10 they don't even care.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't
Oh,
know, especially because a lot of times if we're doing that, we're not sharing that with the person. We're
right,
truly holding on to it,
right.
and they may not even know we're upset.
Mhm.
So it's like they it's not even that they don't care. It's like nobody can do anything about it because you're holding on to it.
Yeah, yeah. So share the grudge is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
No,
That's gonna be our theme today. Share the grudge.
share the grudge. So I love like literally everything that you're saying. And so I want to kind of tailor it down because it is Women's History Month. So I definitely wanted
Yeah.
to keep that lens. Um, so like what do you think for like us women's are like some barriers to getting the help we need to feeling empowered to controlling these emotions? What do you think are in your opinion?
So I think that stigma for sure.
Mhm.
There's stigma around recovery in general. And there's definitely stigma for women to get recovery. I see it in my rooms. It's like 90%, male dominated. It just
Mhm.
is. And then it's like me coming and being like, nope, this is what we're doing. Uh, but, but there's stigma around we're the nurturers, we're the ones taking care of everyone else.
Mhm.
And so we tend to like let that self-care piece slide and we're not as important. I think like that idea of what society has put us in this like box for so long and it's
Mhm.
changing and I love that it's changing because women are starting to realize like oh no I can actually ask for help and that's okay. And it was interesting you said the word how to control our emotions and for me it's not about controlling, it's about using, right? So it's about allowing people to say, you don't have to control your emotions. First of all, let's break the barrier down. We're not hysterical. We're not just because we're upset over something. We're not out of control because we want to voice our opinions. All of these things that literally I've absolutely heard myself and I know other people have heard this, other women have heard this. Those aren't true. It's just not true. You're allowed to be upset, angry, sad, caring, loving, extra clingy sometimes, or whatever you're allowed all of those things, but becoming aware of that and then saying, is this serving me? Or is there a better way to handle this process is kind of where it's coming from. And I think one of the barriers besides stigma is just the idea that we don't have enough information out there for women. Um, Everything is either we've got firemen and policemen and everything has a man at the end of it.
Mhm.
Um, and so we have been left out of the conversation for way too long. That's again, these are just my personal opinions. It's not the
Mhm.
opinions of anybody else. Um, and so that information is always very generalized or not specific to women. Looking for information, even when I found Smart Recovery, again, this was 10 years over 10 years ago. So, um, but I do outreach in my community, and I still feel like I'm just telling people about Smart Recovery because they've never
Mhm.
heard of it. And so that's just a general barrier overall.
Mhm.
But women specifically, I think because we're the caregivers, we're not allowed to have problems,
Mhm.
including as a family member. Everything has to be swept under the rug, everything has to be hidden in a side corner. and we're not allowed to talk about it. We just have to deal with it, and we're also not allowed to get angry about it, which
Mhm.
just is so crazy to me. But that's kind of my take on these are some barriers I think that we're slowly breaking down, but
Mhm.
there's still a ways to go.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I appreciate you doing these because this is part of that.
Well, good. I hope so. I want people to get to meet our smart community and just and hear different points of view because recovery doesn't it's not a one size fits all and it doesn't look the same for everyone. So, maybe something someone says in another video resonates with
Yeah.
them, and something in this video resonates with someone else. And it's just, yeah, I love seeing the different journeys because it is completely different and beautiful. It's just a beautiful mosaic of different people coming together for one common goal, and that's self-empowerment and having a better balanced life and just growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Growing. Um yeah, and I definitely agree with you about like just that stigma. As a mother, and I was dealing with postpartum after the birth of my child recently, and like but not feeling like I could to say
Yeah.
anything, or feeling really guilty for, wanting to be alone for like an hour. Just even just like, can I just have a shower for like 10 minutes and no one talk to me? Like, please. Just like stuff like that, but then feeling incredibly guilty. I just had my daughter had went, she was with her grandma for the day, and I got to like my house was quiet and it was almost unnerving. I'm like, now what do I do? Like, no
Oh,
one is, no one
yeah.
needs me. I can enjoy breakfast and no one's like flinging Cheerios on my phone. Like, this is what? This is wild. It was, yeah. So like, I totally get like that feeling of just like, I'm constantly taking care of others, but when I actually am left to my own devices, I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, and that parenting is like next level of that. I mean, it really is truly like I mean, we can talk all day about it, but it's this idea too of like after you have a child, your hormones are trying to get back in balance. So there's all of that on top of your body looks and works completely differently. We
Yes.
don't talk about that. It's like all these things that again as women we are told not to talk about.
Mhm.
And now that people are starting to have these conversations, it's so important. And I think it's going to make a world of difference in people looking for recovery.
I agree. I really hope so because it's incredibly hard to maintain your sobriety and whilst you have, children that are dependent on you, a family, a household and everything, and then your job and just so many moving parts. And you're just like, I just need to get through today and I need to
Yeah.
do that. But I don't have a minute to even think for myself right now. So it makes it like incredibly hard. It feels like such a Herculean effort. So I commend all the women out there who are working on their journeys and dealing with all those moving parts and that stigma and maybe not having that community support or just someone to talk to and it be okay to say I'm really struggling right now, like I need help.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
just a simple like do my dishes. Like they're done, but it's like just even that, just that is like an act of love. I think this is someone where like just come over and do your dishes, and now that's 20 minutes freed up for you that you could just maybe go and meditate somewhere, or um, you know, take 20 minutes to just decompress, think, center, just be would be so
Yeah.
helpful and nice.
That help aspect is huge. And I do think that that's not just a women specific problem, but I think just as culturally, I think we don't know or think that we can ask for help. It's somehow like below us to ask for help. We're not real men. We're not doing what we're supposed to do as women or whatever that looks like when we ask for help. And so when I started asking for help just in life in general, not just with smart recovery, but just like, hey, this I'm struggling today. Can you help me? I actually like really looked back and gave myself a pat on the back the one day, the very first time I asked for help, because I'm like, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. I'm asking for help. Um, because it was so challenging. It's so
Mhm.
challenging. So yeah, I commend people that just show up to meetings, like to walk through a door, family members or those in recovery. I see it. I know, like, this is not easy because this is you asking for help, and it's hard, and it's
Mhm.
beautiful to see that someone wants to engage in that way.
Yeah, I agree because like it is so brave to ask for help, especially like with the stigma that comes along with like asking for help. It's like almost like a stain on you, like, oh, you
Yeah.
need help, you can't do it yourself. So like it almost feels like a failure. Like I can't do this on my own. So now I have to ask for help. But it's not that. You can't do it. Like, I mean,
You're not
y-
meant to do
you're
things
not
alone.
meant to do
We
things.
don't
Yes.
we need to stop saying, "Do
Yeah.
it on your." You're not meant to do things like, let's everyone start saying that we're not meant to do it alone. We're not meant to do it alone. Like, that life is not meant to be alone. Otherwise, we literally would all be on little islands by ourselves. Like, we're not
Yeah.
meant to be alone. So it it's so crazy, like the way that we've like kind of had this thought process of yeah, you have to do it alone, but then you're a failure if you can't do it alone. And it's just like, what are you talking about? This is more
Yeah.
than a one person job.
Yes, exactly. And just having that sense of community, like, like the journey of recovery or like, that change for yourself within yourself, whether it be working on your anger or whatever, any other behaviors,
Yeah,
like that does start here, but you need that support and community and camaraderie along that journey because it's
absolutely.
hard. It is
Yeah,
so hard.
yeah.
um so that makes me like wonder, like, if you could go back 10 years ago from when you first saw smart recovery, like, what advice would you give yourself for this journey or for any of those who are looking to get into that family and friends aspect that maybe have like, that have a family member struggling with substance use or any maladaptive behaviors? Like, what advice would you give them or yourself, like just getting started?
So I think the advice I give is not any one person is the problem. And not everything is a problem. Sometimes we just make our own problems. Sometimes we are creating problems in our head that aren't even there. Believe me, there's enough problems in the world. We don't have to create more. So
Right.
um I
Just pick
I
one.
yeah, just pick one. Um but I think going into it, for myself at least, it really was like, well, I'm not the problem. I don't know why I'm having to learn these tools and do these things. I wanted help for me to like help the other person.
Mhm.
And it it not one person is the problem. And also you deserve help. You deserve support. You deserve these things. And if you are feeling like, as a family member specifically, if you are on a roller coaster, you are also not alone, and you deserve love and help and support and tools and all the things you want for your loved one. You deserve that too. So that's that would be my spiel to somebody.
But I mean, you're not wrong. Like, absolutely. Like, and it is a two-way, and kind of like you were talking about earlier about just like what do you do with those emotions? Like, you can either sit in them all day or use it for this. So yes, it is so hard and to watch a loved one struggle. You
Yeah,
know, I can't imagine, having a child going through that and watching them. I feel bad for my family for what they had to deal with and seeing me. But what could they do? You can't make someone change, but how you handle that situation. And like, so I think that that's important to know that, like, yes, you need help too while they're working through what they need to work through at the
yeah,
time. So, and it's okay to get that help as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I haven't really personally, like I haven't been to like a family and friends meeting. I know a few family and friends facilitators, but I have not been to a family and friends meeting. But now I feel like I want to check one out. Like I
Mm.
want to like explore that because I think for even those who are struggling with substance use disorder can get something out of going to a family and friends meeting because there may be family members who are continuing to use or struggling with behaviors. And though just because you're on that path doesn't mean that everybody else in your life is. So having tools to deal with that aspect of your life as well, I think is super helpful and important.
So I think you are 100% right. I think people really would benefit a lot from attending family and friend meetings when it's available. There are some family and friend meetings that are what I would call closed to family members only or family and friends only, which is so important for us to have that available to our participants. Because there are things that family members don't want other people to really hear their full emotions about. But in my meeting specifically, we actually have a rotating schedule. So, like I mentioned, we didn't have meetings for recovery when I first started. So, instead of creating um, 2 meetings a week, because I know me, I can get over involved in things and my life can be completely turned upside down. Uh, my child, who at the time was like, 12, was like, why don't you just rotate your meetings? And I was
Oh,
like, that's a brilliant idea. Thank
yeah.
you for that. So I have the way my meeting schedule is we do on the first and third Sunday of the month, we have a recovery meeting. And on the second and fourth Sunday, we run a family and friends meeting.
Okay.
So the main difference is on the family and friends week, we focus on family and friend tools. That's when we have more family members attend. But both are open public meetings. So a lot of my participants are in recovery for themselves and attend the family and friends meeting. And
Mhm.
they get huge benefits out of the tools because in the family and friends handbook, that's where our boundary skills come into play. This is where our communication skills, we have the trust bank tool, which is amazing tool. Uh,
Mhm.
we have all of these different tools that are interpersonal skill tools
Mhm.
in the family and friends handbook that we don't have in the recovery 4-point handbook for
Mhm.
really good reason. In the 4-point side, we really are focused on self. So that idea of interpersonal skills doesn't quite enter for us
Right.
quite yet.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why a lot of my participants come to both because they're getting what they need out of the recovery meeting. And then they attend and get all of these extra skills out of the family and friends meeting. In those meetings, it is kind of my role to ensure that we stick to family and friend topics. So even if you're in recovery, you attend those meetings. I make you think about what happens. How's your family reacting to this? How is your
Mhm.
recovery going? And how does that impact your family? Do
Mhm.
you remember when you were in active addiction? Did your family go through this? How are you dealing with this now? But also, how are you able to use these tools in your own recovery? How are you able to use pious communication in your own recovery when you want to have a difficult conversation with somebody? So it's been interesting, and I'm so happy and excited. I get to talk about it at the upcoming conference of like how to introduce some of these family and friend tools in a room, in what I'm calling a mixed room, a
Mhm.
room where it's family members and those in recovery.
Well, that's awesome and super excited. So you'll be at the conference in Salt Lake City on April 5th and 6th. That's a Friday and a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first weekend in April, in Salt Lake City, giving a talk. What's the title of your talk?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's
Yeah.
like unity in recovery,
Okay.
embracing family and friends, or something like that. It's something
Okay.
really fancy, I'm sure, that I came up with
That's awesome.
that I actually like thought through and probably rewrote 500 times. And then came up with it. And now it's like, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That's why I wrote it down. But yeah, so it'll be, we'll discuss how to engage participants to encourage them to bring their family members every once in a while to a recovery meeting, how to introduce, I'm going to have examples of like 2 tools we'll go through of how to introduce these tools in a meeting. and also how to stop your meeting from becoming a family therapy session.
Oh,
So
gotcha. Okay, I'm sure that's got to be super helpful. There's
yeah, yeah, because it can go there real quick. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for just your time and sharing. I've learned so much about family and friends. I do have my family and friends book over here.
Dust it off, read
Yeah,
about.
yeah. I'm like, I need that last page. I have
Yeah,
I have my facilitator manual. You can't see it on the Zoom background, blocks it out. But I do have it here, and I'm like, okay, last page. I need that
yeah, the fear
the
exercise. Yeah,
fear exercise. I need it. Yep, I got it right here. So I cannot
perfect.
wait to get started on that.
Wonderful. Love to hear it.
Yes. So again, it was such a pleasure meeting you. I've learned so much. Yeah, and I can't wait for you to be at the conference. I will not be there, unfortunately. So I'll have to watch the recording. I know, sad. But I don't like flying, and I also like I with my toddler, my
Oh
teenager.
yeah,
Yeah. And I don't
it was a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
yeah,
It's
no.
absolutely a lot for sure.
Out of the question. But I hear it's going to be super, super awesome. So I can't wait to see some of the reportings and everything from that
Yeah,
and check you out. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so
you too,
much.
Jazz. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.